"Please, she's still alive," shouted the little black boy as he interrupted the millionaire's funeral. The cry echoed through the silent chapel like thunder on a clear day, causing everyone present to turn around simultaneously. A boy of only 10 years old, wearing worn-out clothes and holey sneakers, ran desperately down the central aisle between the rows of elegantly dressed people. "Stop! Don't bury her yet!" Dozens of shocked faces watched as the boy threw himself against the sealed coffin of Margaret Whitfield, the millionaire philanthropist who had passed away the night before. 2 security guards immediately approached, but the boy clung to the polished metal with surprising strength. "Get this child out of here now," ordered Richard Whitfield, the widower, his voice trembling with indignation. How did he dare to get in here? Tyler Jackson had spent the entire last night running through the city, trying to get there on time. At 10 years old, he had already learned that no one would believe a black kid from the suburbs, but this time he couldn't give up. Not when he knew the truth that was about to be buried forever. "Sir, please." Tyler turned to Richard, tears streaming down his dirty face. "Mrs. Margaret is still breathing. I saw her. She's not dead." A murmur of indignation rippled through the chapel. How dare this homeless kid interrupt the funeral of the most respected woman in town? Margaret Whitfield had dedicated her life to charity, especially helping needy children like this boy himself. "Security, remove this disturbance immediately," said Dr. Harrison, the family doctor, adjusting his glasses with disdain. "He's clearly high on drugs or something worse." But Tyler didn't move. His eyes met Richard's, and for a moment, the man hesitated. There was something in the desperate urgency of that gaze that made him pause. She was poisoned. Someone gave her medicine to sleep forever, but she woke up. Tyler shouted, pointing at the coffin. "I heard everything. I know who did it." The silence that followed was deafening. Richard looked at the boy more closely, noticing for the first time that despite his neglected appearance, there was a fierce determination in those young eyes, the kind of courage that only comes from someone who has weathered much worse storms. If this story of courage and justice is touching your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what Tyler revealed at that moment would not only change Margaret's fate, but expose a conspiracy that no one ever imagined possible. But how could a 10-year-old street kid know something that doctors and her own family didn't? And why would he risk everything to save a woman who, officially, should be just another rich stranger? The chapel erupted in indignant murmurs. "How absurd!" exclaimed Victoria Sterling, president of the Charitable Society. "How did they allow this child to enter here?" "Someone call the police," ordered James Morrison, the family's lawyer, taking his cell phone out of his pocket with an air of superiority. "This is trespassing and disturbing the peace." Tyler felt the security guard's hands tighten on his arms, but he didn't move. His eyes remained fixed on Richard, who now watched him with a mixture of curiosity and growing irritation. "Mr. Richard," Tyler insisted, his voice trembling but determined. "I know you remember me. Your wife brought me here several times in the last few months." Dr. Harrison laughed dismissively. "Sure, just another kid imagining he's close to the family. Margaret helped hundreds of needy children, kid. You're not special." But Richard frowned. There was something familiar about this boy, a vague memory struggling to emerge amid the pain of grief. It was true that Margaret had intensified her philanthropic activities in the last 6 months, especially after she was diagnosed with her heart condition. She said she wanted to make a difference while she still had time. She always came home talking about new projects, special children she had met, as if she were trying to make up for something. Tyler took advantage of the hesitation. "She taught me to read, ma'am. Every Tuesday and Thursday, in the mansion's private library. She gave me clothes, food, books. She even took me to the doctor when I got sick." Victoria Sterling snorted. How convenient to make up a story like that right now. "Margaret died of heart complications, you lying brat." "She didn't die," Tyler shouted, tears streaming down his face. "I was hiding in the garden last night. I saw them give her the medicine. I saw her stop moving. But I also saw her start breathing again." The silence that followed was tense. Dr. Harrison adjusted his glasses, clearly uncomfortable. Childhood hallucinations caused by trauma or substances. It's common in street children. Richard looked at Tyler more closely. Margaret had indeed changed in recent months, becoming more secretive about her projects, more protective of certain information. He had attributed this to medical treatment and the stress of illness. "Why were you in our garden last night?" Richard asked, ignoring the disapproving looks from those present. "Because Mrs. Margaret told me that if anything happened to her, I should come to you," Tyler replied, wiping his nose with his sleeve. "She gave me this." Tyler pulled a small golden key from his pocket. "She said it would open something important in her office, something you would need to see if she died in a strange way." Dr. Harrison stepped forward, visibly agitated. "Richard, don't let yourself be manipulated by this pathetic charade. Margaret was medicated, confused in her last days. Any promise she made to this child means nothing." "Exactly," agreed James Morrison. "And even if Margaret showed excessive charity toward this boy, that doesn't give him the right to interrupt a funeral or make absurd accusations." Tyler realized he was losing ground. The adults around him were beginning to close ranks, their faces hardening with prejudice disguised as reason. He knew that look, he had seen it all his life. The look that said boys like him didn't deserve to be heard. "You don't understand," Tyler said, his voice growing more desperate. "I heard the conversation. I know who gave the medicine. I know why they did it." Victoria Sterling rolled her eyes. How convenient that a street kid heard exactly what he needs to hear to get attention. Richard felt something strange. Margaret had mentioned Tyler a few times, always with special affection. "The smart boy from the library," she used to say. "He has a brilliant mind, Richard. If he had been born into another family." "Get him out of here," Dr. Harrison ordered the security guards impatiently. "We've wasted too much time on this circus." But Tyler was not willing to give up. As he was being dragged away, he shouted one last piece of information that made Richard freeze. "She didn't take her heart medicine yesterday. Someone switched it. She told me she always took it at 8 p.m., but yesterday she took it at 6. She was scared because she didn't remember taking it." Dr. Harrison stopped abruptly, his face turning visibly pale. How could this boy know such specific details about Margaret's medication? For a moment, Tyler was sure he had planted the necessary seed of doubt. But what the adults in that chapel didn't know was that the truth he carried was even more shocking than anyone could imagine, and the evidence Margaret had hidden would reveal not only who killed her, but why someone close to the family was willing to commit the perfect murder. But how did a 10-year-old boy discover medical details that even the family didn't know? And what kind of evidence had Margaret hidden that could be so dangerous that someone would kill her for it? Richard watched Dr. Harrison with growing suspicion. The family doctor, who always exuded absolute confidence, was now visibly sweating and avoiding eye contact. "How does this boy know about medication schedules?" Richard asked directly. "Margaret never discussed medical details with me. They're childhood hallucinations mixed with random information he may have overheard," Dr. Harrison replied, adjusting his glasses nervously. "Street kids often make up elaborate stories to get attention or money." Tyler was dragged out of the chapel, but he didn't resist anymore. He had planted the necessary seed. He knew Richard was a smart man, Margaret always said so. "My husband may be stubborn, Tyler, but he's not stupid. When he sees evidence, he investigates." On the steps of the cemetery, while the security guards debated whether to call the police, Tyler heard footsteps approaching. It was Richard. "Let the boy go," he ordered, causing general surprise. "I want to talk to him in private." Victoria Sterling protested immediately. "Richard, you're not thinking clearly. Grief can cause—" "My wife died yesterday," Richard interrupted coldly. "Not 3 months ago. My mind is perfectly clear." Tyler stared at Richard with eyes still moist but determined. "Sir, I know you don't know me well, but Mrs. Margaret spoke highly of you. She said that when you witnessed an injustice, you never rested until you discovered the truth." Richard nodded slowly. Indeed, Margaret had said something like that about him several times. "What did you really see last night, Tyler?" "I was in the back garden, near the library window. Mrs. Margaret had given me permission to get books even when she wasn't home," Tyler began, his voice gaining strength. "I saw Dr. Harrison arrive with a black briefcase, not the usual one he always carries." Dr. Harrison, who had been following Richard discreetly, turned completely pale. "That's ridiculous. All my briefcases are black." "No, sir," Tyler replied calmly. Your usual briefcase has a gold medical association sticker on it. This one didn't. And you came in the back, not the front door like you always do. Richard frowned. It was true that Dr. Harrison always used the front door, like any formal visitor. Why would he change that on the very night Margaret died? Tyler continued, I saw through the window when you gave Mrs. Margaret an injection. She tried to resist, but you held her arm tightly. Then she fainted, but continued to breathe. You waited about 20 minutes, checked her pulse several times, and then called someone saying, it's done. The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Harrison took a step forward, visibly agitated. Richard, you're not going to believe the fantasies of a disturbed child, are you? I had been caring for Margaret for months. Why would I hurt her? Good question, said a female voice behind them. Everyone turned to see an elegant woman approaching, Diana Foster, a nationally renowned criminal lawyer and coincidentally, Richard and Margaret's neighbor. I apologize for intruding, Diana said, adjusting her blazer. But I couldn't help overhearing this conversation from the parking lot. I'm a criminal lawyer, and when a child makes such specific allegations about the circumstances of a death, it demands investigation. Dr. Harrison took a step back. This is absurd. There's nothing to investigate. Margaret died of natural heart complications. Then you wouldn't mind if we examined the body before the funeral? Diana asked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. A simple toxicology test would resolve any doubts. Impossible, Dr. Harrison replied too quickly. The body has been prepared for hours. Any test would be compromised by the embalming chemicals. Tyler looked at Diana with growing hope. Finally, someone who took him seriously. Ma'am, Mrs. Margaret gave me this key, he showed the small golden key again. She said it opened something in the office that would prove who meant her harm if anything happened. Diana examined the key with professional interest. Richard, do you recognize this key? Richard took the small object, turning it over in his hands. It was delicate, obviously expensive, with intricate engravings. It didn't look like it belonged to any ordinary lock in the house. Margaret had a private safe that I never opened, Richard admitted slowly. I respected her privacy. But I've never seen this key before. Where is this safe? Diana asked. In her office, behind the picture of the first ballet she ever attended. But I never. Mrs. Margaret showed it to me once, Tyler interrupted. She said that if anything happened to her, I should give you the key and tell you about the safe. She had been very frightened the last few weeks. Dr. Harrison tried a different approach. Richard, even if there are some personal papers in that safe, it doesn't change the medical fact. Margaret died of heart failure. I had been treating her for months. Exactly, Diana said, her criminal defense lawyer instincts kicking in. You had been treating her for months. You had complete access, knew her schedule, her routine, her medications. Are you implying that Dr. Harrison began, but his voice faltered. Richard observed the expressions around him. Tyler maintained an impressive determination for a 10-year-old. Diana seemed genuinely intrigued by the legal aspects. And Dr. Harrison. Dr. Harrison looked like a man about to be exposed. Let's go to the house, Richard finally decided. Let's open that safe and see what Margaret wanted me to know. Tyler felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. He knew that what was in the safe would change everything, not just about Margaret's death, but about a much larger conspiracy she had uncovered before she died. As they walked toward the cars, Tyler murmured a silent prayer. Margaret had entrusted him with the truth. Now it was his turn to honor that trust, even if it meant confronting forces far more powerful than a street kid should ever have to face. But what had Margaret discovered that was dangerous enough to cost her her life? And why had she specifically trusted Tyler, a 10-year-old boy she had known for only a few months, with evidence that could destroy powerful people? What was in that safe would reveal not only the truth about her death, but a web of secrets that connected her philanthropy to something far more sinister. The silence in the Whitfield mansion was deafening as Richard turned the small golden key in the lock of the hidden safe. Dr. Harrison stood near the door, visibly agitated, his hands shaking as he wiped his glasses for the 5th time in 2 minutes. Richard, I still think this is a big mistake, Dr. Harrison tried once more. Margaret was confused in her last days. Anything she wrote. The lock clicked softly. Richard slowly opened the small metal door, revealing an organized collection of documents, a digital recorder, and several photographs. Tyler approached, pointing to the recorder. She said that if anything happened, you should hear this first. Diana Foster, with her experience in criminal cases, immediately noticed the meticulous organization. Margaret knew she was in danger. This is systematically prepared evidence. Richard picked up the recorder with trembling hands and pressed the play button. Margaret's familiar voice filled the office, clear and determined. Richard, if you're listening to this, it means my suspicions have been confirmed. Dr. Harrison isn't just treating me, he's slowly killing me. Dr. Harrison turned completely pale and took a step toward the door, but Diana blocked his path with a look that made it clear that any attempt to escape would be futile. The recording continued. Over the past few weeks, I have discovered that Dr. Harrison has been using my philanthropic projects to launder money from drug trafficking. The clinic I funded in the city center is not treating underprivileged children, it is being used as a distribution point. Richard's eyes widened as he stared at the doctor he had trusted for years. Is this true? These are hallucinations caused by the medication, Dr. Harrison replied, but his voice was shaky. Margaret was paranoid, seeing conspiracy in everything. Margaret's voice continued relentlessly. I have photographs, financial documents, and recordings of telephone conversations. Tyler has helped me document everything over the past 2 months. That boy has impressive intelligence and a courage that adults like us lost long ago. Tyler felt tears well up in his eyes at Margaret's acknowledgement, but he remained focused as Richard removed a folder from the safe. Inside were dozens of photographs showing Dr. Harrison entering and leaving the clinic at suspicious times, always carrying different briefcases. There were also bank statements highlighting irregular transfers from Margaret's foundation accounts to shell companies. Diana examined the documents with a professional eye. This is enough evidence for at least 3 federal charges: money laundering, charitable fraud, and attempted murder, Richard finished, his voice now laden with a controlled fury that made Dr. Harrison take another step back. The recording wasn't over. Margaret continued, Richard, I found out I'm not the first. Dr. Harrison has done this before. Mrs. Patterson, who died last year of heart complications. Mr. Williams, who had a sudden death after questioning irregularities at the clinic. They were all funders of my projects, and they all started asking inconvenient questions. Dr. Harrison tried one last desperate gambit. Richard, you've known me for 15 years. Would you believe a street kid and the fantasies of a sick woman instead of trusting me? That's when Tyler spoke up, his voice small but firm. Sir, there's one more thing Mrs. Margaret asked me to show you. The boy took a small digital camera from the safe. She installed this hidden in the library last week. She said that if Dr. Harrison came during the night, it would be to do something bad. Diana connected the camera to Margaret's laptop. The screen showed the library in black and white, with a timestamp from the night before. At 11:47 p.m., Dr. Harrison appeared on the screen, entering silently with a black briefcase. The video clearly showed the doctor preparing a syringe, approaching Margaret as she slept in her reading chair, and injecting her arm. The camera also captured the moment when Margaret woke up, tried to resist, and gradually lost consciousness. But the most shocking part came later. For 20 minutes, Dr. Harrison waited, checking Margaret's pulse repeatedly. When she stopped breathing, he smiled, picked up the phone, and made a call. The audio was clear. It's done. The annoying old woman is finally gone. Tomorrow I'll sign the papers transferring control of the foundation. Our friends will be very pleased. The silence in the office was absolute. Richard stared at Dr. Harrison with a mixture of horror and anger that completely transformed his expression. Diana was already calling the police. Dr. Harrison finally realized there was no escape. His mask of medical respectability crumbled completely. You don't understand. That woman was interfering in business much bigger than your silly charity. There were powerful people involved. Powerful people who will now be exposed through your phone records and documents, Diana replied coldly. I hope you've got good lawyers, Doctor. Tyler watched it all with a mixture of sadness and satisfaction. Margaret had entrusted him with the most dangerous truth of her life, and he had honored the trust even when no one believed her words. Richard knelt down to Tyler's level, his eyes moist. You saved not only my wife's memory, but how many other lives this monster would have destroyed. How can I thank you? Mrs. Margaret already taught me everything I needed to know, Tyler replied with a wisdom impressive for his 10 years. She said that when you see something wrong happening, you can't pretend you didn't see it, even if no one believes you. Police sirens began to wail in the distance. Dr. Harrison attempted one last desperate escape, but Diana and Richard blocked all exits. When the police entered, they found a renowned doctor completely breaking down, confessing to crimes through tears of self-pity. "I just wanted the money," he sobbed as he was handcuffed. Margaret was a stubborn old woman who didn't know when to stop asking questions. Tyler watched Dr. Harrison being led away, finally allowing his tears to fall. They weren't tears of sadness, but of relief. Margaret had gotten her justice, even after death. But as the police collected evidence and Dr. Harrison was taken away to never harm anyone again, Tyler knew that the real victory was yet to come. The story of a generous millionaire and a brave boy was about to spread far beyond those walls, inspiring changes that even Margaret could not have imagined in her wildest dreams. As Tyler watched justice being served, one question remained unanswered. How would a 10-year-old boy, whom everyone despised for his appearance, become not only the hero who saved a life, but the catalyst for a transformation that would forever change the way society viewed children like him? The real lesson was yet to come. 6 months later, Tyler Jackson walked the halls of the prestigious Whitfield Academy with a new backpack and impeccable uniform. Richard had insisted on not only paying for his education, but also creating an educational fund for other vulnerable children, exactly as Margaret would have wanted. The transformation was impressive. The boy who once slept on cardboard now mastered advanced mathematics and spoke basic French. But what impressed his teachers most was his unwavering determination and keen sense of justice. Dr. Harrison was not so fortunate. The scandal completely destroyed his medical reputation. The investigation revealed a network of corruption that linked his clinic to at least 5 suspicious deaths of wealthy philanthropists. His medical license was revoked, his assets confiscated, and he was now serving a 25-year sentence for first-degree murder. The irony was delicious. The man who had despised Tyler for his poor background now survived on basic prison meals, while the boy he had tried to silence became a national symbol of courage and integrity. Diana Foster, the lawyer who had helped with the case, visited Tyler regularly. "You changed my perspective on justice," she admitted over lunch. "Seeing a 10-year-old fight for the truth while privileged adults lied shamelessly reminded me why I chose law." Victoria Sterling, who had mocked Tyler at the funeral, now worked quietly as a volunteer on projects for underprivileged children, a transformation she attributed directly to the lesson in humility that brave boy taught me. Richard often watched Tyler studying in the library that had once been Margaret's exclusive domain. "She was right about you from the start," he said one afternoon. "She said there was something special about the way you saw the world." Tyler smiled, looking at Margaret's photo on the bookshelf. "She taught me that it doesn't matter where you come from or how people see you. What matters is what you do when no one is looking." The Tyler Jackson case became a case study in law schools, an example of how prejudice can blind adults to the most obvious truth. Television programs documented how a black boy from the suburbs not only saved a life, but exposed a conspiracy that killed at least 5 people. Today, at 16, Tyler is president of the Student Council and plans to study law. His first case? Defending children in situations similar to the one he experienced. Dr. Harrison tried several times to write letters of clarification from prison, claiming that his conviction was unfair. No one responded. After all, who would believe the words of a man who so brutally underestimated the intelligence of a child? The Margaret Whitfield Foundation, now run by Richard and overseen by Tyler, has helped more than 200 children get off the streets. Each new story of overcoming adversity carries a little of the courage of that boy who dared to shout the truth when all the sensible adults chose silence. Margaret was right. Sometimes justice needs the most unlikely voice to be heard. And Tyler proved that no matter how small you are, when you fight for the truth, the whole world stops to listen. If this story of courage and transformation has inspired you, subscribe to the channel to discover more stories that prove that true strength does not come from power or money, but from the courage to do what is right, even when no one believes in you.